أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وعد الله الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات ليستخلفنهم في الأرض كما استخلف الذي من قبلهم وليمكنن لهم دينهم الذي ارتضى لهم وَلَيُبَدِّلَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ خَوْفِهِمْ أَمْنًا يَعْبُدُونَنِي لَا يُشْرِكُونَ بِي شَيْئًا وَمَنْ كَفَرَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. Translation: I seek refuge with Allah from Satan the accursed, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, ever merciful. Allah has promised to those among you who believe and do good works that He will surely make them successors in the earth, as He makes successors from among those who were before them, and that He will surely establish for them their religion, which He has chosen for them, and that He will surely give them in exchange security and peace after their fear. They will worship me, and they will not associate anything with me. Then whoso is ungrateful after that, they will be the rebellious. Surah Nur, chapter 24, verse 56. Jazakallah.
Okay, Jazakallah. Right, so today the subject is on Hazrat Ali, Allahu anhu, and the Shiite view that they believe that he should have been the first Khalifa, and of course the Sunnis believe that he wasn't, he was the fourth Khalifa. So this is what we want to discuss today. Maybe some of you have come across this and been doing Tabligh to Shiites. Maybe not, so hopefully this will help you, and we look forward to having your contribution as well. Okay, so as I said, the Shiite Muslims, they claim that Ali, he was meant to be the rightful Khalifa after the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And so therefore, because of this, they do not accept the first three Khalifas of Islam. So the question is that, are they right, and how can we answer them? So before I start, let's put it open to anybody. Has anybody faced this and got any way they want to explain what they answered, how they answered this, or shall I just explain what I normally do? So here the argument of the Shiites is that they claim that the Holy Prophet Muhammad at the farewell pilgrimage in front of 100,000 Muslims, the Holy Prophet nominated his successor, and he said that it would be Hazrat Ali. So this is the argument which the Shiites put forward. So how would you answer this? Does anybody want to have a go? You're all quiet today. You want to listen to my voice.
Rabbi Saab, minded me answering that. I would say that Muhammad said that at a given time maybe he will be my successor, because he didn't say when.
Okay. So anybody else have any views on that? It's not exactly saying then.
Just an idea, I mean.
The argument against that would be that why didn't he mention Abu Bakr or Uthman? Why Hazrat Ali, if this was true? Okay, so this is the thing. Is it true? That's the thing that we got to look at. I mean, this is the argument that the Shiites put forward. But did the Holy Prophet actually say this? or is it the understanding of what the Holy Prophet said? So the Shiite Muslims claim that when the Holy Prophet Muhammad passed away and Hazrat Abu Bakr was elected, then they said Hazrat Ali who kept quiet. And the reason he kept quiet was that he didn't want to be the cause of tribulations. And he decided that he was going to put a curtain against the Caliphate. So this is how they would answer this, that why, if you say that why didn't, if this was the case, Hazrat Ali put forward his claims. So they would say that he didn't want to be the cause of tribulations and he wanted to put a curtain against the Caliphate. Okay, let me continue with this and we'll talk a bit later then. So how can we answer this claim of the Shiite Muslims? So I'll give you how I would answer this claim. What I normally do is I get them to try to think about the example of Hazrat Ali. Now, according to what they say, and I'm saying this is what they say, not what I actually believe, if he, Hazrat Ali, knew that this was his divine right to be the successor. Now, I'm saying divine right because if the Holy Prophet Muhammad had nominated him to be his successor, then the Holy Prophet's not going to do that unless Allah informed him so. And so therefore it must have come from Allah. So it was his divine right. So therefore, if he knew this, that he had been or is meant to be the successor, this is what Allah wanted. This is what the Holy Prophet Muhammad wanted. And he knew this. Then let's look at his behavior. How did he behave? So first, why did Hazrat Ali, knowing him that he was the rightful successor and chosen by Allah, a divine right, and I'm emphasizing this divine right, why then did he accept Hazrat Abu Bakr as the first Khalifa? This is his divine right. Why then did he accept Hazrat Umar as a second Khalifa? This was his divine right. And why did he himself choose Hazrat Uthman to be the third Khalifa when he knew that this was his divine right? And then why did he, when he had a chance to become the fourth Khalifa, he refused? It's not making sense. This is meant to be his divine right, given to him by Allah, given to him by the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And yet, even though it was his divine right, he accepted other people before him, and then he refused this. Now, I'm emphasizing the divine right because this is how I really try to get through to the Shiites, that you are trying to say this. This is your claim that the Holy Prophet nominated him, and so it becomes a divine right. So understand what you mean by divine right, and I'm really pushing it into them now. Okay, so let's look at this a bit more in detail. When Hazrat Abu Bakr was elected as the first Khalifa, at that time, we know the story was that he heard that the Ansar, the helpers of Allah, they were trying to elect a Khalifa from amongst themselves. And so it's related that he and Hazrat Umar went and attended that meeting. I think there was one other person. And when they heard what was happening, then Abu Bakr stood up and he said that the Quraysh would never accept a person from the Ansar. And he nominated Hazrat Umar. But then Hazrat Umar stood up and said, no, the best person is Abu Bakr. And it's related that at that meeting, they all agreed and accepted Hazrat Abu Bakr to be now the first Khalifa. Now, as I said, Hazrat Ali wasn't there because he obviously was a relative. He was a cousin of the Holy Prophet. And he was preparing the body of the Holy Prophet. He had just passed away. And obviously, as you know, you've got to do the ghusl and things like this. So this is what Hazrat Ali was doing. But now, obviously, in Medina, the story would have come out. People would have been talking that they've chosen Hazrat Abu Bakr to be the Khalifa. Hazrat Ali, knowing full well that it's his divine right, would and must have heard this. There's no way he's not going to hear it. But still, you have to understand what happened next. The next day, not that day, the next day, all the Muslims came together and they accepted Hazrat Abu Bakr to be the first Khalifa. So obviously they're coming together for the burial of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. They had heard this is what had happened, and they accepted Hazrat Hazrat Abu Bakr to be the Khalifa. So the question is why? And this is what I try to get through to Shiites. Like, think about this. Why? It's okay you say one thing, but let's think about this. Why did this happen? Because according to them, they say that they were all present at the farewell pilgrimage. 100,000 Muslims, 100,000 Muslims all heard the Holy Prophet apparently declare that his successor was going to be Hazrat Ali. 1,000 Muslims. That includes Hazrat Abu Bakr. That includes Hazrat Umar. That includes Hazrat Uthman. All these were present. So they all heard this. And yet, no one objected to Hazrat Abu Bakr becoming the Khalifa. 100,000 people would heard this, and not one person said, hey, what's going on? Hazrat Ali is meant to be the successor. Why did they all keep quiet if it truly happened? So Hazrat Ali, he had plenty of time before the acceptance of Abu Bakr to lodge his complaint. He could have easily gone up to Abu Bakr. Now, okay, he's free now. He's got the body ready for burial. He could have come up to Abu Bakr and said, what are you doing? You know, it's my divine right. The Holy Prophet has nominated me to be the successor. Why are you taking this on? Why didn't you do it? Now, what the Shiites say is that he didn't want to be the cause of tribulations. Now, surely, if he didn't want to be the cause of tribulations, if he really felt that I do not want to cause tribulation here, then someone, anyone amongst those 100,000 Muslims who heard this, someone must have said something. Not 100,000 people didn't want to cause tribulation. We have to understand this. This was a declaration from the Holy Prophet Muhammad. As I said, that meant that Allah had guided the Holy Prophet, and so is the divine right. All these Muslims knew this apparently, and yet no one complained. They all accepted Hazrat Abu Bakr to be the first Khalifa, even though they knew that Holy Prophet Muhammad had clearly said apparently that Hazrat Ali was meant to be the first Khalifa. So it doesn't make any sense. I can't understand this. Why didn't anybody say anything? Someone should have objected if it was true. Now, again, when we look at Hazrat Ali, and look at his character, this is a person who was known for his strength. It's well known that as a young child of about 9 years old, the Holy Prophet Muhammad was commanded by Allah, you go and warn your relatives. And so he called all these relatives to him. In a famous speech where he said that if I told you there was an army behind that mountain, would you believe me? They all said, yes, yes, we have no doubt you're the Sadiq, you're the truthful one. You will never lie. He called them then to Allah and said, I am the Prophet of Allah. And they all mocked him and abused him. Hazrat Ali, a young boy, stood up and said, I will be your helper. The Holy Prophet told him, sit down, you're too young. He went to the relatives again. Who's going to help me? No one came forward. Ali stood up again. I will be your helper. He was the only one in all those relatives who stood up and said, I will be your helper. At 9 years old, he had the strength to face the Quraysh. At 9 years old, he was the only one willing to be the Holy Prophet's helper. We know that in every battle, he fought so bravely, killing so many people, that Holy Prophet himself gave the title of the Lion of Allah. Such was his bravery. The lion represents bravery. This was the kind of person that Abu Ali was. And yet now, now when it was his divine right, when the Holy Prophet had told him and told everyone that he was going to be the Khalifa, now he's afraid to tell anybody? He's scared of the truth? It doesn't make sense. there was nothing stopping him from going to Hazrat Abu Bakr and reminding him that this is my divine right. Why are you depriving me and depriving the Muslims of my divine right? Nothing stopped him. He had all the multitude, 100,000 Muslims were ready to witness this, apparently. What's he scared of? And yet somehow he remained quiet. It doesn't make sense. This is not the Hazrat Ali that I know. When I read the history books, I get a completely different Hazrat Ali than this, who's scared to stand up for what the Holy Prophet had said. It doesn't make any sense at all. Now, how would standing for his divine right have caused tribulation and division? How is it possible? This is something which the Holy Prophet Muhammad himself announced. It's not something he's claiming. It's something that the Holy Prophet announced, that this is what Allah wants, that he, Hazrat Ali, should be my successor. So, if that is the case, and it's true that the multitude would never have accepted Hazrat Abu Bakr, how could they, if they all knew that this was his divine right? And yet, facts show that they accepted Hazrat Abu Bakr and not Ali. So it doesn't make sense. Now, again, the Shiites will say, well, Hazrat Ali was refused to do the bayat with with Abu Bakr, and this was because of this, because he was deprived of his divine right. But the facts show that this was not the case. It was not about the Khalifa at all. In fact, it was a dispute between his wife, Hazrat Fatima, the daughter of the Holy Prophet, and Hazrat Abu Bakr. Hazrat Fatima felt that she was entitled as inheritance of the oasis of Fadak. And so she wanted that. But Hazrat Abu Bakr refused and told her that the Holy Prophet had announced, we do not have heirs, whatever we leave is sadaqah. Now, Hazrat Abu Bakr would always try to do whatever the Holy Prophet did. We know from history, he sent out the same army and kept the same leader, Osama, as the Holy Prophet, because the Holy Prophet had said that army should go, even though it weakened his position and he was in dire straits, still following whatever the Holy Prophet did, he did so. He wouldn't budge one iota from any of the pillars of Islam. They wanted to lessen the zakat? No way. This was a strength because of his love for the Holy Prophet Muhammad. He would do anything to please the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And if he had heard that this is the case, that the heirs do not have inheritance, then he wasn't going to give it. Fatima became angry and refused to speak to Abu Bakr. Now, of course, Hazrat Ali is caught in between now. It's his wife. Of course, he's going to support his wife. And so, therefore, he did not do the bayat. Doesn't mean he didn't help Hazrat Abu Bakr, although he didn't really get involved in the politics at the time. But still, he never refused Abu Bakr, if Abu Bakr asked him something, but he didn't do the bayat. Hazrat Fatima sadly passed away after 6 months. But once she had passed away and this issue had disappeared, then Hazrat Ali did the bayat with Hazrat Abu Bakr. If he felt it was because of Khilafat and his divine right, he still would not have done the bayat. But it was about this dispute, and that's why Hazrat Ali did not do the bayat in the beginning. Later on he did. We then see that Hazrat accepted Hazrat Umar as a second Khalifa. We know that Abu Bakr chose Hazrat Umar, even though it was the divine right, apparently, of Hazrat Ali. Hazrat Ali could have again objected that this is my divine right. Now I've got a chance, okay, you've accepted Abu Bakr, but now, the second Khalifa, I'm the divine right. But facts show, and this is what we've got to turn to, the facts. The facts show that Hazrat Ali accepted Hazrat Umar and did the bayat with Hazrat Umar. Facts don't show that he brought this issue of divine right. Instead, what the facts show is that he became Umar's trusty advisor, so much so that he was appointed the chief judge in Medina. This is the trust that Umar had with Ali. There was no dispute going on here. Now we see that Hazrat Umar, and Hazur's been talking about this in a few khutbahs recently, Hazrat Ali was one of those 6 which Hazrat Umar appointed to elect the next Khalifa. He's in a council. He had an opportunity to say, this is my divine right. Why are you choosing another Khalifa? It's mine. Still, they went on, and in the end, they chose Hazrat Uthman. Now, no doubt, Ali wasn't happy with that, but he was part of that council. Majority ruled, majority went for Uthman. He had to follow majority, and so he accepted Hazrat Uthman. And he did the bat with Hazrat Uthman. Yes, no doubt, there were issues. And continuously, he had some issues with how Uthman was being the Khalifa, no doubt. But he always continued to support him. So much so that when the rebels finally besieged Medina and held Hazrat Uthman as hostage, Hazrat Ali became Hazrat Uthman's bodyguard and ensured that he had water to drink and so on and so forth. There was no hatred here. Yes, there were issues, but there was no hatred. Finally, we see that the rebels, after killing the 3rd Khalifa, wanted Hazrat Ali then to become the next Khalifa and approached him. Now he had a chance that the people were asking him to be the Khalifa, and so finally he could fulfill this divine right. But what happens? He refused. He said, no, I'm not going to be the Khalifa. It was only when the people went to him, the other people, and also said, you should be the Khalifa. Finally, he gave in and he accepted the people's desire and he became the 4th Khalifa. But at the beginning, he refused. If he truly believed that this was his divine right, why does he refuse? It doesn't make any sense. Now, what the Shiites say, and again, this is open to disputes, they said that once he's become the Khalifa, in his khutbahs, in his Friday sermons and things like this, now he complained bitterly against the previous Khalifas, that how they were, why they didn't give me the rights and so on and so forth. This is their claim. Again, I would question that, but this is what they claim. So why? Why did he do this, if it was true? Hazrat Ali was the one that accepted Hazrat Abu Bakr. He accepted Hazrat Umar. He accepted Hazrat Uthman. This was his choice. He chose to remain quiet and accept others and took their bayat. This was his choice. He chose to help and serve them. This was his choice. This shows a shining example of an obedient Muslim, one who strives to please Allah and not to create tribulations and division. But now we're led to believe that when he suddenly becomes the Khalifa, something which he didn't want, he didn't desire it, but now he gets it, what's he going to do? He mocks and insults the previous Khalifas and complains that he wasn't given this right, even though he chose to remain quiet. Again, it doesn't make sense. The fact is, what happened is that he causes a split. He causes the very tribulations that he wanted to avoid, if this was true, if he started complaining as the Shiites said. But we've got to understand that at that time, there was no Shiites. There were followers of Hazrat Ali, but the Shiite sect hadn't started yet. This is all coming later on. Right, so as I mentioned, these supposed allegations, they came later on by his followers. This is what they claim. But the facts show that Hazrat Ali was a humble servant of Allah who did not desire any position and was ever ready to serve Allah. If he really believed that he was a chosen one, then nothing would have stopped him from trying to get what that thing was. But the facts show something different. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, I'm going to stop there. There's more to talk about, but first I want to give everyone an opportunity now if there's anything they want to say on what I've been talking about. Have they got any ways that they present this case, or is there any questions about what I've said? So again, it's open to everyone. If they want to speak, now's your chance. Otherwise, I'll move on. It is a discussion group, as I say every week. We want you to put forward your ideas and views.
If anyone has any questions, please just unmute yourself, and or you can also raise your hand, and you know, you can unmute yourself through there, or please also send in any questions if that's the way you feel comfortable.
Okay, Jazakallah. I'm going to give you a few more seconds. I'm doing a very good job, or everyone's very quiet today.
No,
Okay.
Tahir Sahib, Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome,
Assalamu
Salam. Gee.
I know, Tahir Sahib, it's really so elaborating and so absorbing that there is hardly any question which can be put on, can be asked. So it's a very well prepared
Okay.
stuff. Very well
Exactly.
prepared. It's
Imam?
really, it's very absorbing and very interesting and very knowledgeable.
Okay, so
Please
Nasir
go ahead.
Saab, how would you tackle this? Have you faced any Shiites before and viewed?
Fortunately and unfortunately, no.
Okay,
Yes.
right. Okay, so, okay, I'll move on. And if anybody wants to speak, of course, we can always go back. It's not a problem. Right, so now I just want to give a brief history of the Shiite Muslims, just for your own benefits, so you can understand a little bit more about them. So, as we said, it began with the third Khalifa and the rebels and so on and so forth. The rebels felt that Hazrat Ali was on their side for some reason. This was the rumor that was put forward, that Hazrat Ali was supporting them. It turns out, of course, that that was not the case, but that's where it first started, the supposed followers of Hazrat Ali. So, as I said, I've explained how Uthman was elected by Hazrat Ali himself. So you have to read this through. I'm just going to go quickly through this. So these rebels, they were saying that the election of Hazrat Uthman, this was a conspiracy. They felt that it should have been the Prophet's own family. So this is where it first started pushing this idea of the Prophet's own family, I believe. I don't believe in this thing of what happened at the farewell thing. Yes, no doubt he mentioned certain things, but they've taken it completely differently to what was actually mentioned. So this started the first seed of dissension, if you like. Now, actually, the first sect in Islam was the, what do they call them? The Mu'tazilites, who eventually killed Hazrat Ali and tried to break up this war with Muawiyah and Ali. But at this time, like I say, at this time, the third Khalifa, it started. Some people were talking about this, but no sect of Shiite was formed at this stage. Even during Ali's time, still, it was still one. There was no Sunnis and Shiites. There was some break off with the Mu'tazilites, or I can't pronounce the name that now because the name's not in front of me. But anyway, still the Shiites hadn't been formed. It was actually during the reign of Umayyad Khalifas. Now this issue, this old issue of families started coming up. And Muawiyah started appointing his own family, Yazid and so on and so forth, to be there. And that caused the old, going back into history of the families hating each other. And so these issues started coming up. And so the supporters of the House of Ali, they tried to rebel against the Umayyad Khalifas. And this is where the Shiites started to develop and come into their own as such. They never recognized the authority of the Umayyad Caliphs, and they wanted to follow their own imams. And so they believed, and they were starting to put forward that it's from the direct descendants of Hazrat Ali, Hassan, Hussein, from the children and so on and so forth. And so this was the beginning of the Shiites, which eventually split into many different sects. Now, of course, they did finally lead, or they joined forces, a coalition, to form the Abbasid Caliphate. But anyway, we're talking about Shiites at the moment. So the major sect of the Shiites are known as the Twelvers. You may have heard of them as Twelvers, or you may have known them as this Ash'ariyah. This, as I said, is the largest group of Shiites today, and they have most of the Shiite beliefs that we know. The 12 Shiites are known by this name because they follow the 12 Imams, all belonging to the house of Ali. The 12th Imam, Muhammad al-Mahdi, is believed by them to still be alive and in hiding. So he, as a young child, went into hiding, and they believe that this is the hidden Imam. And the Shiites believe that he will return, the Imam, in the latter days of Islam. So they believe that he is still alive, and he will come back. Where he is, how he's still alive is another thing. So according to the Shiites' belief, they say that Hazrat Ali inherited all the spiritual abilities of the Holy Prophet, and that he was the only rightful successor of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. The Shiites therefore reject the caliphates of Hazrat Abu Bakr, Hazrat Umar, Hazrat Uthman, and they obviously rejected the Umayyad destiny that followed. Because of that, the Shiites don't accept many hadith of the Holy Prophets, especially those which were transmitted by Hazrat Aisha. That was again a different battle that she had with Ali. And so they resented Hazrat Aisha and don't accept many of her hadith. I'm just briefly going through this. I know most of you know this history anyway. The Shiites also differ from the Sunni Muslims in other areas of ablution. They do a different ablution, adhan. They bring in Ali's name, the prayers, the pilgrimage, and even the declaration of one's faith, they bring in Ali's name for that. And there is a teaching of Mutta, which I'll go to later. The next group are called the Seveners, and this split from the Twelvers when, after the sixth Imam, Jafar al-Sadiq, after the death of him, then the Twelvers made the younger brother, Musa al-Qasim, to be the seventh Imam. Whereas the Seveners, they decided it shouldn't be that person. Instead, it should have been Ismail. And so they said that he was meant to be the rightful Imam. And it's the Seveners who recognize the new Imam in the son of Ismail named Muhammad al-Mahdi. So for this reason, the Sevener Shiites are also referred to as Ismailis, which I know many of you from Pakistan are quite aware of. After the death of the Fatimid Caliphate al-Muntasir, then the Ismailis also divided into two sects. One sect is the Mustalis, I'm pronouncing this wrong, I know, and the second one is Nizaris. So again, you may know that. Here's a little chart you can see just to get you some idea of these different groups that formed. So obviously, we see from Hussein, from his children came Jafar, and then finally it split with Ismail coming to the Ismailites, and then the 12 Imams there, and there's also the Sayyidis. Right, so I'm going to briefly go into this practice of Mutta. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Shiites started the practice of Mutta, where they believe that you can get married and have a relationship with a woman and then divorce her in a matter of minutes or hours. In other words, it's a temporary marriage, they say. And they try to justify this from the Holy Quran in chapter 4, verse 25, where the word istamta is used, and they will try to refer it to tamattu, a temporary connection with a woman. But this is not according to the Arabic grammar. You can look up the verse in the commentary and you can read about this. So we know, of course, that this is totally un-Islamic, because Islam teaches you've got to have a proper marriage with dowry. This is what Holy Quran clearly declares. No sexual relations outside marriage is allowed in Islam. And if you're married, then again, the Holy Quran declares there's got to be a 3-month waiting period before you divorce. So you can't just have a temporary marriage as such. To make it even worse, they tried to say that Hazrat Ali used mutta whilst away at wars. Astaghfirullah. So what they're saying is that the Holy Prophet's son-in-law is doing this, having these girls and saying it's a mutta in front of the Holy Prophet. Of course, Muslims could marry 4 women. Even before that, they could marry many women. But this is how apparently Ali is going to behave in front of the Holy Prophet. And the Holy Prophet was happy that this was happening by a person who's married to his daughter. It could never happen. Oops. So again, this is another teaching which I believe is a false teaching, and this attributing to Ali, again, I believe is false, as with many of the other things that they say. Right, that's my talk. Now, again, I'm going to open it up to anybody who's got any questions, anything they want to say, anything.
Rabbi Sab, I had a question which I wanted to ask. You know, as you just mentioned as well, Shias basically don't believe in you know, the hadith as well. I'm not sure exactly which hadith, or maybe most of them, or you know, when it comes to the hadith as well, you know, there are other sects of in Islam, such as Sunnis and so on. They believe on the, you know, in the hadith. So you know, when it comes to the Tabligh point of view, we can at least kind of, we've got something to discuss with them and something to, you know, to do Tabligh with them, because we can relate to quite a lot on the stuff. But when it comes to Shias on this point of view, on the hadith as well, how do we kind of overcome this? What other ways can we basically you know, use to do Tabligh, you know, on Shias? I know you've mentioned quite a lot as well. Maybe is there anything else that maybe?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, even with the Sunnis, we have this problem with a lot of Sunnis when we're doing Tabligh, that they say, oh, this hadith is zaif, it's weak. According to our scholars, it's a weak hadith, and so they try to reject the hadith because their scholars have said it's weak. And it's the same with the Shiites. There's many hadith, especially about Imam Mahdi, and if you go into that avenue, you're going to be facing a lot of problems. This is why, as I said, what I do when I am doing Tabligh to Shiites is I go to the core of it, that this supposed what happened at the farewell pilgrimage, and whether it was true or not, and try to then get them to understand what do they mean by this. And I find that this is a better way to discuss with the Shiites rather than trying to go to their beliefs, because obviously, as you've rightly said, there's many that they will reject, and so that becomes very difficult then when you're trying to put forward your arguments. They say, no, I don't accept that hadith, I don't accept that. So this is why I prefer that if I'm discussing with the Shiites, then I'll come to this issue, and what did the Holy Prophet actually say, and what did he mean by this when they claimed that he was by divine right appointed to be the Khalifa. So try to get them to use logic as I've just put forward. That's how I normally try and tackle it. So I wouldn't get into the hadith, because like you say, you know, if you're quoting hadith, they're going to reject it. If we quote hadith, they're going to reject it. It's the same as, like I say, when you come to the Christians, that certain things that they believe is not supported by the Holy Quran. So we say, okay, you should follow what the Holy Quran says. They say, well, we're not going to follow what the Holy Quran says. So you've got that sort of issues all the time. So it's best to keep away from which hadith is correct and which hadith isn't correct. As far as we're concerned, obviously every hadith should be supported by the Holy Quran. So that's the main thing, go to, rather than the hadith, go to what the Holy Quran says. And then if the Holy Quran is saying something, like say with this mutta, for instance, if the Holy Quran is saying something completely different, bring that in, and that's better than just trying to argue with the hadith. Has that made it clear? Has anybody else got any comments on that, or anything else? Right. Anybody else got anything they want to say? Has anybody had any discussions with Shiites? No? Okay. Anyway, Amir, yes, you want to say something?
I know one Iranian guy, he became Ahmadi, but he was not Shia, he was Sunni from Iran. And yeah, so I thought I'd share that with you.
Well, it's not a Shiite. But yeah, I mean, this is one of the things, of course, that it's a wonderful thing that they declare us as non-Muslims. But when you look at what actually Shiites believe, they have gone quite away from Islam. Of course, especially in Pakistan, there is a great dispute between the Shiites and Muslims and the Sunnis. But they haven't actually, well, at points they've all declared everyone to be Kafirs as such. But this thing which they have put, we are declared non-Muslims, they haven't done that to the Shiites as far as I know in Pakistan. But obviously in certain countries like Iran and things like this, where there is a huge Shiite presence, there is a lot of disputes, and you've got to feel for any Muslims, and this is why, in fact, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad come, because as far as we're concerned as Ahmadis, we don't recognize any of the sects. Islam is one. It doesn't matter whether you're Shiite or Sunni. As far as we're concerned, Islam is one, and that's what you should be following. So we're trying to come back to the original teachings of Ali, Umar, Uthman, and who I missed out, Abu Bakr, and have Islam as one. So this is our understanding. But obviously, because we have to do tabligh to Shiites and things like this, so therefore we try to explain these things to them. Now, what I was expecting someone to say was that if this was not what the Holy Prophet said, then what did the Holy Prophet say? Did he say that he was the successor or not? And as far as I understand it, it was that the Holy Prophet was saying that he is a beloved of mine. As we know, Wali and things like this. Not that he was a successor. He was just declaring that this is a loved one of mine. And he was appreciating Hazrat Ali. As the Holy Prophet mentioned this about many other people. But he didn't say that this was a successor. This, I believe, was a deliberate, maybe, misunderstanding of what happened at that occasion, where they're trying to present it. And as I'm saying, that if it was really the case where he actually had said that Ali was going to be my successor, then we would have seen a completely different scenario. I don't believe that 100,000 Muslims would have kept quiet. But my understanding was that he only mentioned about the good qualities of Hazrat Ali, and that was all it was. Not that he was saying that he's going to be the successor. Okay, if there's anything anybody else wants to say, or shall we leave it there for today? Okay, you're all very quiet today. Normally we do get some people saying some things, but anyway, again, as I said, if there's any particular subject that anybody wants to discuss, please contact Zaid or Toby, and inshallah we'll try and do that as a topic in a future event. So let's finish it for today now. So please, can you all join me in silent prayers? Bismillah. Ameen.
Ameen.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.